The world's on fire. Our river's gone dry. The rich are getting richer. They've left us out here to die. Mass migration. We got no place to hide. Who's against us? Who's on our side? Are they too dumb or are they just in on it? Liars and cheaters, a red-hot grip. Ditch the gaslighting gas bag that speaks in code. He's a faker, a shaker, a pontificating pantload. In this house of mirrors, we've hit the wall before it's too late. Let's go. Come on, y'all. It's border to border and coast to coast. It's real, it's facts, and it ain't no hoax. It's Podcast by George, and it's showtime, folks. Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome on in to another podcast by George. Well, that introduction couldn't be more appropriate to our topic today. We're going to talk about horror in the heartland, and a lot of people consider Ohio to be in the heartland, folks. We're going to talk to a resident out there. We're going to talk to somebody that has had their world turned upside down, and I'm just delighted to have her coming on the show this morning. Folks, we're going to be talking to Jami Rae Wallace. She's a wife and mother. She was in her home in East Palestine, Ohio, when one of the worst man-made disasters in American history. Now, that's what I'm calling it, but there are some people that are calling it worse than that. I've heard it likened to Chernobyl. I've heard it said that they're going to have to put a fence up around that town, that village, and that'll be the end of it. Nobody's going to be able to come back in. I don't know if it's that severe, but it is severe. We're going to talk about that. But she was there, and when that tragedy, that disaster descended upon her community and her family. And let's bring her on in and say hello, hi, how are you? And good morning to Jami Rae Wallace. So here we go. Let's bring this in there. There we are. And I'll bring it up full screen like that. She's joining us from a hotel. We'll explain what that's all about. But good morning, Jami.
Good morning. First, I want to comment on the picture you had of me up there. I haven't looked like that since the train derailment.
That's all right, kiddo. I like that. I mean, I like that auburn hair, those green eyes. My God, that's a beautiful photo. And I tell everybody, I mean, when you're young, and I'm an old geezer, get a lot of pictures taken when you look good and when you were young, because they can't take that away from you. So, yeah, that's great. Thanks for coming on the podcast by George Liveline. First off here, now tell people where you're at, because this is a part of the story today. Where are you?
I'm still at the hotel.
Yeah.
We've been in a hotel since February 3rd. I am, fingers crossed, maybe getting a new house today, but we have not been able to return home. Even when they lifted the evacuation and said it was safe, I think it was the, redheaded Italian mama bear in me said, it's not. I can see it. I know this isn't safe. I don't care what the EPA is telling me. So I pushed. I raised my voice. I pushed the issue. I had the gentleman from the railroad come down to my house. He sent a toxicologist that said our house wasn't a unique situation. And the next day they being the railroad, offered to relocate us.
Yeah, so when you say that you're getting a new home, you're not talking about a new home in East Palestine. You're talking about some place else, right?
Oh, not in East Palestine, no.
Yeah.
My daughter has not been back since the night that this happened. We have gone back, my husband and I. We've gone back, though, to organize the people to try to fight this. So we held a community meeting. River Valley Organizing is who we were working with, a nonprofit who, fights environmental issues in the River Valley. We have a lot down here. So we teamed up and brought in some independent scientists. It was the first time that the town had heard from someone who was not the railroad and not the government.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions. I want to bring this up on screen, Jami, because this is someplace. This is you mentioned raising your voice. Well, you went worldwide. I mean, you're not only on the web and being interviewed by television outlets, but also in the Independent that I follow once in a while. There's an article in there that says Ohio toxic train derailment. A couple and toddler diagnosed with respiratory infections. Local residents Chris and Jami Wallace and their toddler went to a hospital with breathing issues. So here,
Right.
let me read into this, and I want you to talk about it. A couple and their 3-year-old child are suffering from upper respiratory infections in the wake of the toxic rain derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Local residents Chris and Jami Wallace and their toddler went to hospital with breathing issues, which they said developed after the train crash. Okay, so I'm going to read some more of this, Jami. But what about this angle? Now you've had those issues. Are they ongoing, or have they improved since you've been gone from East Palestine?
The baby has improved. Chris is day by day, and I guess so am I. If we spend too much time in town, you can hear my voice
Yes.
isn't still quite back from being in town. I ended up going to a different hospital for a second time, and was again just within the past week and was told that I still have an upper respiratory infection. And it's not just me. People are being diagnosed with bronchitis due to chemicals. A lot of doctors are saying they won't, in the room, not by yourself. People are saying that they will not diagnose with chemical stuff now, that they are
Wow.
saying it is not, they're not able to test for the chemicals, so they can't diagnose that it's from the chemicals. We have my sister-in-law just got diagnosed with a skin condition due to chemicals. So it's the rashes, it's the bronchitis, it's the eye infections. There's just a whole slew of health issues that they're telling us are not from the derailment, but they all start when the train derailed.
Yeah, that's great. Let me keep reading through this article. Jami Rae, I love that name. That's a cool. I got some relatives that have Ray, Rae,
Yeah.
in their middle. It's an unusual, older kind of a name. Let me bring this up on a screen here. Quote, you say, I knew something was different when we left town and there was that chemical and smell in your nose, as if you were in the bathroom cleaning with bleach and you walk out and you still smell that bleach in your nose. That was an interview that you did with News Nation. Around 50 train cars derailed on the 3rd of February, folks know, including 20 carrying hazardous substances. Again, this is from the Independent coverage, and they interviewed Jami Rae. More than 2,000 residents were evacuated due to health concerns over the chemical leak, but have since been allowed to return. Jami, that 2,000 residents, that's basically the whole village, is it? There's not much. That's everybody almost, isn't it?
Well, I think there's 4,000 in some.
Oh, is there?
One of the concerns is that the first night that the mayor posted on Facebook for us to evacuate, they said within 1 mile of the James Street crossing, which is about 0.6 miles closer to town than the amended evacuation point. So, there's questions as to why that evacuation point was moved further away from town. It was moved towards a less populated area. And it also took our high school out of that 1 mile radius, which is where they were evacuating people to.
Yeah, I got to ask you this question off the top because this one's been plaguing me. I've always told people about our nuclear bomb testing in the Bikini Atoll, and we set off of this nuclear bomb way back in the 50s or 60s or something like that. The fallout fell on the Bikini Atoll. People were living there. Kids played in the fallout. It fell from the sky, and they were out. They thought it was snow on the beach, I think. Okay. What I heard was that in East Palestine, there's a white dust that I think it was a fallout from that burn off, and that was all that was over everything. Did you encounter a white dust?
Yeah, it's over everything. And when it rained for the first time, the streets were flooded in that same rainbow water that you're seeing in some of the videos of
Yes.
dropping rocks into the creek. Yesterday, there was a post on Facebook about how that dust is eating paint and clear coat off of cars. And I actually have a picture about 4 days ago. We finally took the car through an automatic car wash, and a 50-cent piece size chunk of paint came off of the roof of my car. And you can see that it's a clear, like, chunk that just came off. There's no rust around it, no wear. You can just see that it was stripped. There's also several little dots, probably no bigger than like a double the size of like a pen head, like just very small dots where the paint was just peeled away. There's so many issues that we're facing right now. It's hard to even know where to begin from, people getting sick. We didn't start out as a community of sick people that are getting better. We started out thinking we were fine, and now we're getting sick and sicker. We now have people being admitted to the hospital with these bronchitis and pneumonia due to chemicals. We have people that have lost their jobs. I can tell you what it's like to experience this, but to literally have your entire life changed in one day, there's a mental health aspect to it.
My
Uh,
God. Mental,
people
yeah, go ahead.
people that don't have social security cards, that are trying to get reimbursements from the railroad and can't get it. We have the neighboring town of Negley, which the 4413 East Palestine zip code encompasses between 5 and 6 miles. Negley is maybe 3 miles away, but they have a different zip code, and all that water from those creeks runs straight down to them.
Wow.
They're part of a township, so I don't even. They're like an unincorporated area, so everyone down there has wells. No one's
Yes.
talking PA. This isn't just an East Palestine thing, and now they're taking this dirt and burning it at WTI. Um, well, now I guess it's called Hermitage Thermal. They changed the name of the nuclear waste plant that we already have here in our county. So now it's not just the town, it's not just the neighboring towns, it's the entire county.
My God. Let me bring this back up on screen. We can, there's some other questions that I have. Some of the cars, crash cars, were carrying toxic chemicals, and we've heard about this litany. And if you can't pronounce it, folks, it's bad. Let me tell you: vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, ethyl ethyl acrylate, and ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, which were released into the air, surface soils, and surface waters. That's what Jamie's talking about. 5 railcar tankers of vinyl chloride were intentionally breached by crews, and the substance diverted to an excavated trench. Vinyl chloride, which is used to make plastic pipes, wires, and packaging, is associated with an increased risk of a rare form of liver cancer. Why the liver, folks? I got news for you. The liver is your filter, it's your screen. That's where all this crap goes to, and the liver tries to handle it. And if it can't, guess what happens? Yeah. Hepatic, I can't even pronounce that. I'm not going to try to, along with primary liver cancer, brain and lung cancers, lymphoma, and leukemia. Now, that's from cancer.gov. I'm going to play this clip also from the Independent, Jamie, and you can talk through it here. Tell us what we're looking at with the train derailment. And again, I think most of the harm was done by this purposeful burning of this thing. They didn't want it to burn or explode, so they exploded it and burned it, which I won't be able to figure out. But here it is. Yeah. So there it is. Now, is that the burn off, or is it? Yeah, there it is. House Train Yard, February 3rd and 4th. That's about when you got the hell out of there, it sounds like. Here's a night shot. Drones are dramatic. Look at that. Yeah. So, and again, my podcasts are also heard in audio. So I'm just showing a video here of drone footage of how calamitous this thing was. This is no minor deal. This is coming up on the end of the clip now, folks, and going through the East Palestine rail yard showing this. I wanted to have that video up on screen. Okay, let's take that down and get back to this article.
Oh,
More than 2,000 residents were evacuated due to health concerns over the chemical leak, but have since been allowed to return. Some of the crash cars were carrying the toxic chemicals, and they released into the air, surface soils, and surface waters. Now, here's the point that I made on an earlier show that I did on this, Jamie, and I'm sure that you're attuned to this. The water supplies and the soil also, they can leach these chemicals for a long time. I mean, and that's the point that I made above and beyond everything else. The media is going to grow weary of this like they do in the short attention span theater that is America, and they're going to move on to other stories. A lot of them already have. But this contamination probably is going to become worse when it goes to water and soil because that simply takes time. It may not be present immediately, but it will be eventually.
Right. But here's I got a couple of things to say about what you just said and what
Yeah.
you first of all, is that soil testing. The independent scientists said that that's the most crucial, is the soil. The air tests, your air quality changes constantly. Every time a train goes by, our air quality changes. They still have not, to my knowledge, done soil testing. And that was one of the things that I said when they were trying to say the evacuation is lifted, go home. How can you tell me it's safe when you have not even done soil samples yet? And again, as far as the creek goes, everyone's talking about the drinking water. Drinking water is fine. And like you said, for right now, it might be fine. But how many chemicals went into that creek? They were, and our first responders did an amazing job. They did what they were supposed to do, but they used hundreds of thousands of gallons of water to try to put out that train right next to one of our creeks. You
I,
talked about controlled burn. We had a retired fire chief and hazmat specialist from Mahoning County come down and speak at our River Valley Organizing Community Informational Meeting last week. And something he said that I didn't realize is this isn't a common thing. I don't even think that it's a thing that they have ever done. He said that there were different ways that they could have gotten the chemicals out of these train cars,
yes.
safe manner, but it would have taken more time. So they just did a science experiment on your whole town.
My God.
So I think the media has taken this as all these controlled burns happen all the time. And then the EPA came out and said that this trench that they dug to burn these chemicals in, the railroad covered it back over with gravel so that they could get the train tracks built up and running. There was a train waiting to come through town before the evacuation was lifted in a neighboring town. Those trains were running before we even got back to our houses. And again, everybody wants to trust the government, but where was the oversight from the EPA? How were they able to get away with covering this trench of toxic soil, chemicals, whatever was left in it, and leaving town before the EPA even noted that? So there's so many things that have went wrong with this whole derailment, the way it was handled, the way it's being tested.
That went wrong and could go wrong again. The point that I would make, people watching this may think, well, that's just Jami Rae's problem and the people in East Palestine. No, there are millions of us, including me, that live in proximity to rail lines and they're transporting these chemicals. And it could happen again. When I lived up in the Minneapolis area, our townhouse almost backed the rail yard. I mean, it would have 100 yards maybe from this. Let me go back to this article here because there was a couple of things in here that I wanted to ask you about. Okay, this controlled detonation was then carried out to prevent an explosion. I think a lot of people are going to be like this official that Jami Rae was talking about. I think they're going to come to believe that this was a mistake. They should have taken more time and they should have more safely released and transported and got those chemicals out of there. Burning that off or exploding it to prevent an explosion was not the thing to do. One of the substances released was phosgene. Get this, a gas deployed as a chemical weapon in the First World War. Environmental remediation work was ongoing. Norfolk Southern said, along with air, soil, and water monitoring in coordination with state and federal agencies, Jamie's got an issue with that. Regulators have said that the air quality is safe and drinking water supplies have not affected surrounding communities. One resident in the town of North Lima, around 10 miles from the train derailment, also reported that her 6 chickens died in the days after the fire. It was not only the report of sick animals. Taylor Hauser, a registered fox keeper who lives outside the evacuation perimeter, told WKBN that all of his foxes were sick and one had died. Dead fish were also observed floating in local streams. Okay, Jamie, talk about that a little bit. There have been a lot of dead fish seen. I know that, thousands of them. I also heard about wild animals dying like raccoons on front yards, deer in the woods, and that type of thing. Do you have any personal knowledge of that? Are animals dying above ground and in the water still in East Palestine?
Yeah, they are. And if they're not dying, they're sick. I just had, I've been flooded with messages with people needing help. We need help right now. We don't need help when, the governor gets around to it or the president gets around to it or the money comes in from these lawsuits. People are constantly messaging me, how do I get out? How do I get out? Just this morning, a woman messaged me. She has three cats. Two of them, all three of them ended up going to the vet for respiratory issues. Two of them were more severe and had to do a couple days in the veterinary hospital. You know, People are reporting all over that their dogs are getting sick. Of course, we've seen the pictures of the dead fish. These are streams where we catch our bait. My husband and I, and now our daughter are avid outdoorsmen. So all summer long we go fishing in the Ohio River. We catch our bait in those creeks. We've never seen the creeks full of dead fish, and this is not just something limited to our area. We just went to visit a friend who lives up on a hill outside of East Palestine that has a lake that's not fed from any of these streams, who now has fish dying. So he was like, is it in the air? Is it, this acid rain? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Also, there was a video yesterday that I watched of a gentleman it's called State Line Park, is what we call. I'm not exactly sure, but it's in Ohioville, very near to the Ohio River, but it's right where Beaver Creek meets the Ohio River. Actually, one of our favorite fishing spots. But there seems to be like some kind of buildup there of the chemicals that are kind of, the where the two bodies of water are meeting, and there were three dead deer laying there
Wow.
together.
Yeah.
Tons of gunshots. And the other thing he noted was that normally the animals would be eating this, especially the soft tissues such as the eyes, and no animal had touched these deer. But we keep being told that there's no way to test for this. Even in humans, where people are asking, like, when we go to the doctors, what do we ask them to test for? And we're being told, well, there's not really anything to test for. We need environmental doctors. Insurance does not cover environmental doctors. They're not bringing environmental doctors in. So we don't even have a way to figure out what's poisoning us, because it's slowly poisoning an entire community.
And when I knew that Jamie was going to be kind enough to come on, and this is very kind of her to do this, to raise this awareness, to sound off on this type of thing. I took a look at her Facebook page. Jamie, I wanted to comment on this. These are some community demands by East Palestine residents. Relocation for anyone who wants it, independent environmental testing so that it can be trusted, ongoing medical testing and monitoring, dispose of the toxic waste safely. And here's an interesting point, and I'm not so sure that I completely agree with this one. Norfolk Southern pays 100% of the cost. Okay, I get that, and this is kind of like negative reinforcement, a penalty for them to take action to prevent this from happening elsewhere. But my point is, and I made it on my show earlier, and I'd like to see what you say about this, Jamie, but I want my government involved in this. And you mentioned that taxpayers aren't at fault at this, but this is the type of thing that I pay taxes for. This is what I want the government to do. I want the railroad to be hit hard because of this, obviously, where the majority of the blame falls. But I'm an old lefty, Jamie, and instead of blowing up people around the planet, I want my tax dollars being used to help you and yours, and to have a more active and a better role in this than what you've seen. What do you think about that line of logic?
I think these are kind of our immediate demands, but it's also an issue with the government. You kind of touched on this before, but one of the reasons why I've been so vocal is not just so this doesn't happen in my community again, but so it doesn't happen in yours. We have 4 gas stations and our fire station that basically sit right on those railroad tracks. And while Norfolk Southern is responsible, so is the government. I don't know how much you've read about this precision scheduling. Um, that has been going on with the railroad and the railway workers union fighting against it. Basically, it took away some of the safety mechanisms on the trains. They were allowed to add more train cars to the trains. The employees are working more hours. They have less time to inspect these railway cars. So there's a whole piece of this that is the government. DeWine said on the news conference that they're supposed to, they being Ohio, is supposed to know of any hazardous waste or toxic chemicals being transported by train through the state, and they were never notified that this train was coming through. So I think the fact that the government has kind of loosened the controls on the railway, um, they do have a part in that.
Yes.
And we don't want it to happen again to you. Nobody should have to go through what we are going through right now as a community. So we are going to push those lawmakers. I actually quit my job and took a $10,000 pay cut to work for River Valley. It's what I have my degrees in. It's a passion of mine, and now it's my people. The thing that I love about River Valley is they're nonpartisan. We will go after whatever lawmakers are voting to loosen these regulations on the railroad. I don't care if they're red. I don't care if they're blue. I don't care if they're pink, yellow, or green.
That's right.
We are going after the people that are allowing the railroad to do this. It's going to happen again. It's not a matter of if, it will happen. And who knows if it'll be, worse than what has happened to our community. And that's what I want people to understand. This could have very well been your backyard,
That's right.
your family and your community that's being left here to die slowly from these chemicals. So if we don't come together, not only as a community, but as the United States of America, and demand that some of these laws are changed, it could be you next.
My God, that's well said. It makes me weepy just to think about it. I'm concerned. That's why I wanted to do the show with you. It's all about people, as far as I'm concerned. Primarily, first of all, I'm concerned about the short and long term health benefits for you and yours and your beautiful daughter and that type of thing. Secondly, that's when I start to get concerned about stuff. What about the stuff? What about the homes? I jokingly said kind of, but I may not be very far off. They might put a fence up around East Palestine because of the contamination. What are those people going to do to sell their homes, to be made whole, to be able to go somewhere else and get a home someplace that's safe?
Nobody's going to buy a home there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy a home in East Palestine, and I feel like even if, even if they came out right now and said, oh no, the town's not toxic, come back. Are you going to go there and eat at a restaurant? Are you going to and buy our vegetables or our cattle? And this is kind of the divide that I feel like the railroad's putting in our town, is between the people that care about health and the people that care about money. And it's the business owners in town. They have a lot to lose, and I get it. These are small businesses. These are people that have worked their entire life to invest in this retirement business. And I feel like they don't want to face the fact that no matter what we do, no matter how much cleanup they do, nobody's ever going to look at East Palestine in the same way that they did before this. We were a booming village. We had been working on, building up the downtown, bringing businesses in, getting a bigger variety of businesses. And now everyone that has invested in this town is kind of playing this. I don't know how to say it other than drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
The EPA told us it's safe, and the EPA, but they're blaming it on the people that are speaking out, on the media, on social media. Like, why is anybody talking to the media? They basically wanted to keep it hush hush so that you'll still come to our restaurants next year. And that's not the fact. Well, the EPA says, let's look at facts. How many times has the EPA lied, about this stuff being safe? So it's almost like that. I don't see it in front of me right now.
Yes.
And, if 20 years from now, everyone starts getting cancer, they're just living in the present.
Let me get to a couple of other things here that you have drawn attention to. This is okay. So this was of interest to me. You wrote that I just pulled into our hotel in West Virginia. That's where you found some sanctuary there. There's a line of Heritage Thermal semi trucks in the parking lot. He said I could puke. My baby is not safe anywhere. I saw where you posted the people that are removing the dirt, working in the dirt all day, are in the hotel that you're in. So that dirt has cross contamination probability in the hotel in West Virginia. Have I got that right?
Yes, sir. We saw the trucks out in the parking lot, and I've seen different environmental trucks, but I've kind of been focused on my own thing. But the other morning, there were two gentlemen that walked in that were obviously, dressed like they had been working outside, and they were covered in dirt. And I said, "Are you guys cleaning up that contaminated soil in East Palestine?" And he says, "Yeah, we are." And you're walking into the hotel without cleaning yourselves before you come in, without removing the dirt. They're driving these semi trucks that have big hazardous waste on the dump trucks into the parking lot. So when I brought it up to the manager of the hotel, I was like, "Look, like, I feel like you should have at least notified us, notified your staff." He told me that it was my opinion that the dirt was toxic. I said, when toxic waste plants in Michigan and Texas didn't want it, I don't really think that's a matter of opinion. It's fact. Uh,
Yes.
he told me again, it's profit over people, just like the railroad. This is a business. And if he threatened me on camera that if I told any of the other guests in this hotel that those guys were staying here and coming in here dirty, that he would throw us out of the hotel.
Thank God. And this isn't the first run-in that you've had with people trying to censor you. I want to play this. This is something that I saw maybe a week or two ago on your Facebook feed, and you can let me play this.
Right here, I can't record in the church.
Why are we not allowed to record in the little church? This is where we live. This isn't their property.
That's right. Yep, First Amendment. Right.
Right. Out of your own town, out of your own country.
So your own officers know that. They're walking us out.
Okay, Jami Rae, I'm a big First Amendment advocate. I'm a journalist. I'm that by training and education. I've believed this my whole life. I'm all for freedom of information and public disclosure and all of those types of things. What was happening in that film clip?
Uh, what had happened was that's the assistance center where the railroad has set up to do reimbursements. The gentleman that was walking out with the suspenders is illiterate. He cannot read and write. His neighbor came in to help him through this process. And as he was helping him, he was asking questions and demanding answers about, has the soil been tested? So they bring in the cops, which are um, local police officers that they've paid, people from our community that we are paying, our tax dollars are paying, to remove him from the assistance center because he was asking questions. He remained respectful the whole time. Even when he was outside, he was respectful, but yet he was being removed. And when I tried to videotape it, I was told that I was not allowed to record. And of course, I know my rights too. So, you see the video, but that's what they're trying to do. And I also think the biggest thing that East Palestine did wrong was arresting the reporter. The national reporter that they arrested.
Yes, yes.
And I really truly believe, and I'm not saying this towards you, but that's why we got some of the national news that we got. That's why we've been on Chris Cuomo 6 times, because that same reporter worked for his station. You don't come in and upset reporters if you don't want stuff reported on.
Yeah, you I can't remember who it was. I think they were talking about Horace Greeley, but you don't want to go to war with a guy that buys ink by the barrel. That was back in the day. That's what they were talking about. That's what you're seeing some of. And before anybody jumps to a conclusion here, that public meeting was being held in a church. Yes, and churches are, they're tax exempt. There's a big public role in churches, period, in this country. But when it's being used and approved as a public meeting place, it is public. And Jamie has every right in the world to video that if she wants to. So I'm going to bring this up on screen. I do this little segment called What in the Hell or What in the Hell? And that's a lot of what we're talking about here today, Jamie. But I wanted to play this because this goes to what we're talking about. I'm sure that you've seen this interview. It's another videotape, and there is audio with it. So give this a look, and it reminds me of your open with your voice. Watch this guy.
I work in East Palestine at Rural Arena, outside with cars and water, and it's just been like this ever since the train blew up.
It's crazy. What does your voice really sound like, Wade? I know you can't tell us, but is it like that? You sound like Michael Jackson normally?
Lately, I sound like Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
But
he's got a deep, raspy voice normally.
Other than that, I just go and get tested and get checked out.
Well, what are they telling you?
My doctor says I most definitely have the chemicals in me. And,
but he has to find a toxologist to get properly...
They keep telling me to come up here, but nobody has nothing.
When you say nobody has anything, like there are no doctors in town to be able to help you?
No. That's what they tell me. I gotta make a phone call and schedule an appointment with somebody.
Okay.
But,
are you going to do that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Is it just affecting your voice, Wade, or are you feeling it in other areas of your body?
My chest hurts at nighttime. It feels like I'm drowning a little.
He wakes up every morning.
I have a hard time breathing. Yeah. I cough up phlegm a lot. Yeah. But other than that, like...
And were you in pretty good health, Wade, up until now?
Yeah.
You're only a 40-year-old man. That's not very old.
No. But now I'm just waiting around.
Okay, so that is, goes into that category that I talk about, what in the hell I get these news clips. Now, people might look at that and they say, well, that guy, maybe he's just psychosomatic. Maybe he's just having issues of stress and fear, and that's affected his voice. But I don't think that's the case. And even if it were, and this I talk about this type of thing, I do some health type podcasts also, Jamie, but the placebo effect, they call it sometimes, it's still a direct result. It's an impact of this poisoning that's taking place out there. So it's real. I got to believe it's real with that guy. And I hope he's going to be all right. And I hope your voice returns and you're going to be all right. Honest to God, that's scary stuff. That's what has a lot of people frightened.
Well, and that was, we had a gentleman who just started working for River Valley Organizing as our communication director, and he came to our community meeting, and it took him almost a week to get his voice back. We've had, as you said, we've had international coverage. I spent a couple hours in town with a news reporter from Germany. That night, he was really sick. He started getting nauseated, and his nose and eyes were burning, his chest. It was heavy to breathe. We had a group of scientists come in from a university in Pittsburgh. They were sitting next to the train tracks in their vehicle waiting on us. Every time the train went by, they said that it felt like they couldn't breathe. The next day, they texted me, are these the symptoms? I said, yes. They won't return to town. We've had reporters that spent the day there that have nosebleeds. I am telling anybody who comes in to volunteer to help us, or the media, to wear respirators. Like, you are coming in here to report on us and to help us because our town is toxic. Just because we've been exposed to this, we don't want anybody else to be exposed to this. This is dangerous. So, again, I've been urging everyone, if you're coming into town, please wear some kind of respirator to protect yourself.
And a couple of other things I wanted to get to before we lose you here, and you've been very kind, very generous with your time. I know you've got a lot of things to do, and a lot of it has to do with these politics. It's honest to God. It reminds me of what you were talking about with businesses, how people prioritize that in our society. We've been so propagandized, so brainwashed that people can't support or can't separate themselves from their jobs. They are they're almost like a manufactured object almost. It's like, God, think about the humanity. Quit thinking about stuff. But that's what people have a tendency to do. And I wanted to ask you, and I had that clip up earlier, uh, that video. People would say, well, that's from the New York Post. There was an interview that I had from Newsmax. But as you mentioned, the last thing on your mind now is Sean Hannity versus Rachel Maddow as an example, MSNBC versus Fox, and it's what the truth is and what the facts are. That's what matters, and who gives a damn about that kind of stuff? Am I correct?
Well, some of the reporters do.
Yeah.
I actually had one national reporter that called when they opened up the CDC clinic, where they weren't checking anything, even your blood pressure. They were just giving you advice. And she said, "Hey, we're starting River Valley, starting like a story bank. So if we have a news reporter call and say, 'Hey, I want to talk to somebody that's sick with kids,' I'll connect you to someone." And part of that is because I don't want people to think it's just me and my issue, every face in town to be seen. So this reporter called and she said, "Hey, do you know anybody that's been to the clinic?" And it had just opened that morning. So I said, "Let me make a couple of phone calls." So I called my mom first. I call a lot of family. We have 47 of them that live within the 1 mile radius. And we had been on my mom to go get seen because she's been so sick and she's stubborn. She said, "I'm not going down there." She said, "Look on Facebook. You didn't see the post they put out of the things that they're not checking for?" She said, "All they're doing is giving you advice on whether or not you should go to the doctors." And I was like, wow. So I look on Facebook and I see what they released. And I'm like, I was in shock. So I called this national news reporter back and I was like, "Look, I was like, I was calling to see if I could find someone, but this is what's really going on. Like, this isn't even really, a clinic. You're basically going in there. You're not even getting your blood drawn. You're not even getting vitals taken." I said, "So maybe that's the twist you want." She's like, "No, thank you for the information, but can you find me somebody that went and had a positive experience at the CDC clinic?"
Oh, God.
I said, "No, I can't, because there's no positive experiences." And I kind of got upset and I told her, I said, "Look, you need to report on what's really going on here and not what your station wants you to report." I had another woman from New York City that, did an article on us, and she said she really had to fight the place she worked to come down and do the story because they just didn't feel like it was, a good enough story to do. And she said when she returned home, and by the way, her story got hundreds and hundreds of views and comments, and or thousands, not hundreds, like thousands of comments, and it went really viral. But anyways, she said when she got home, she called her friend that had been watching her pets for her. And she said, "Hey, thank you so much because you watched my pets. I could go down and do this story. I'm going to send it to you. You're not going to believe what's going on in this town." And you know what her friend told her? "No, thank you. I don't want to read it. The first story you did had a lot of negative comments about the government in it."
Oh, God.
And the woman texted me. She's like, "This is what we're up against." She's like, "And this woman isn't my friend anymore." And she was one of the people that was, sitting on the porch with my aunt and I, who live right next to railroad tracks, talking. And when the train came by, it took her breath away. She's like, "Oh my God, like I feel that. I feel what you guys are talking about now in my chest." Like it's just overwhelming. So, those are some of the things that we're up against with the media. Some stations want to just report happy things and, what the EPA said and what DeWine's saying. And that's where the media goes once the big story is over. They're only going to report on us when the EPA says something. They're not going to come down and keep talking to us to see what's going on.
My God, that is well said, Jami Rae. I'm going to I'm going to do a clip. I do these little short takes on it. I'm going to take that part of it and put that out as a short take after a short clip quick take after we finish talking here. Well, again, you've been very generous with your time. I want to give you a last word, though. My heart goes out to you for people that are watching. There are multiple places where you can contribute and help. And if you have any ties to the government, tell them to get off their asses and do something to help somebody instead of blowing people up with $1 trillion National Defense Authorization Act every single year. So that's my left wing tilt on this thing. Give us a close here, Jimmy. Wrap this one up for us.
Our town needs help right now. Like I said, we're being poisoned slowly, and I feel like no one is helping us. FEMA's not getting us out of there. The railroad's not getting us out of there. They're telling us it's safe, but we're getting sick. Like, we truly need help now. One of the ways, if you're looking to give, River Valley Organizing, we are community led. So we're walking door to door to see what people actually need. We're buying air filters, respirators, providing independent soil and water testing. Be careful who you're donating to. A lot of the GoFundMe's and even, some of the funds for East Palestine City themselves is going to go back into restoring the city. It's not going into helping the people that need help right now.
Now, that's well said. Let's help the people, folks. That's Jami Rae Wallace. As I said at the beginning, she's a wife and mother. She was in her home in East Palestine, Ohio, when one of the worst man-made disasters in American history. There's a possibility this could go down on record as the worst ever, folks. It descended upon her community and her family, and she's not going to just take it. She's going to speak up, and that's what she's been doing today on the podcast by George Liveline. Thanks for coming on, Jami.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the best to you and yours. Let me tell you, I want to hope good things come your way, that this can be resolved in some way. But I don't know about the long-term health issues here. This stuff is inside of those people. There's no doubt about it. They need to be taken care of, and the government needs to play a bigger role in this, and that's the way that I'm going to end it. Folks, if you like seeing folks like Jami Rae Wallace on the podcast by George Liveline, please go to my website. It is podcastbygeorge.com. You can sign up on Facebook and YouTube. It's easy to do right there. Just click on those icons on YouTube. When you get there, ring the notification bell, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. That'll help spread the word everywhere. And of course, if you just like listening to the audio as you're out, taking a hike or riding a bike or driving your car, you can sign up for Spotify, iTunes, the iHeartRadio app, Amazon Music, just about any place that podcasts are heard. That's where you will find Podcasts by George. So that is going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. That's all there is, and there ain't no more. That's another podcast by George.